Welcome to the Tim Booker channel, where wisdom is worth spreading. Wishing you a pleasant listening experience. Today, we're going to talk about the book, Going Solo. You probably have many young people around you in their 30s who have their own careers and hobbies, aren't in a rush to get married, and are leading happy lives. They are often referred to as the single dogs in a group. So, how many people like this are there in our country? The latest statistics show that the number of single men and women like this is close to 200 million. In fact, on a global scale, living alone has become a major trend, and it could be said that humanity has entered the era of the solo dweller. In the United States, 1 in every 7 young people chooses to live alone. In Manhattan, over half of the population prefers living alone. In the Nordic countries, the proportion of single dwellers is even higher. Sweden has the highest proportion of solo dwellers in the world, with Stockholm's capital having a staggering 60% of its population living alone. In Japan, over 74% of people in their 20s are not in a romantic relationship, and 40% of single individuals say they don't want to find a partner. They find love to be troublesome and would rather spend their time on their hobbies. The book we're discussing today, Going Solo, addresses this societal trend. It's authored by Eric Klinenberg, a sociology professor at New York University. He has been studying the phenomenon of living alone in the United States and declares that individualism and not getting married are becoming a global trend. His previous book, Heat Wave, was related to this. It investigated the devastating heat wave that hit Chicago 20 years ago. During 5 days in July 1995, Chicago experienced a record-breaking temperature of 41 degrees Celsius. Around 750 people died in their homes, and their families, friends, and neighbors were unaware and unable to receive social support. Klinenberg believes that society has a problem. His research serves as a reminder to society about how we should treat those who live alone. Heat Wave received 7 academic awards, and due to Klinenberg's reputation in social research, a foundation approached him to conduct further research on the increasingly common phenomenon of living alone. He conducted interviews with over 300 single dwellers of different ages and social backgrounds in various cities. After observation and analysis, he wrote, Going Solo. Klinenberg's research results resonated throughout American society and were featured in publications like The New Yorker, CNN, NPR, The New York Times Magazine, Rolling Stone, and American Life. In Going Solo, Klinenberg analyzes how the trend of living alone has emerged and how it has changed people's understanding of themselves and marriage. He also explores how living alone affects urban development, economic changes, and even the way humans age and pass away. His conclusion is that going solo represents an unprecedented, powerful, and inevitable social transformation. We need to make changes to adapt our future societies and urban planning to this shift. Our society has a variety of family arrangements, and Klinenberg categorizes them into 6 forms. The first is the core family, which is based on marriage, with parents and unmarried children living together. Most of us live with our parents in core families before leaving home to pursue education. The second is the multi-generational family, where more than 2 generations of people live together, such as grandparents, parents, and children. The third is the married couples with no children family. The fourth is the roommate cohabitation family, which includes forms like couples living together and same-sex cohabitation. The fifth is single living, which is the focus of this book. The sixth is elderly homes, or nursing homes. According to the latest data in the United States, as of 2010, over 50% of adults are single, with 31 million people living alone. In the United States, single living households have become the second largest family type, just behind childless married couples, surpassing the other 4 family forms. Of these single dwellers, 17 million are women, and 14 million are men. Among them, 4 million are young adults aged 18 to 34, 15 million are middle-aged individuals aged 35 to 64, and approximately 10 million are 64 and older. It's clear that young and middle-aged individuals make up the majority of single dwellers. The United States isn't the country with the highest proportion of single dwellers. In Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Denmark, nearly 40% to 45% of households consist of single dwellers, and in Japan, single living households account for 30%. In recent years, China, India, and Brazil have also seen a rapid increase in the number of single dwellers. what are the reasons behind the significant increase in the population of solo dwellers? Klinenberg, using the United States as an example, summarizes 5 key factors. First, there's the rise of individualism, which has a historical tradition in the United States. As early as the 19th century, 2 important public intellectuals, Emerson and Thoreau, propagated the ideology of individualism. Emerson advocated individual rights, while Thoreau, famously known for his book Walden, built a small cabin by Walden Pond, living self-sufficiently, without the need for neighbors and resisting taxation. He exemplified what it meant to be self-reliant. They both became role models, especially for young people, who increasingly sought self-independence and were unwilling to be tied down. Second, the elevation of women's status is of utmost importance. With improved educational opportunities and equal employment opportunities, women no longer have to depend as much on men. Their economic power and independence have grown, and they now have more authority to decide their family lives, sexual rights, and reproductive choices. Since the 1960s, American women have increasingly rejected the traditional roles of being dependent on husbands and families, and the feminist movement has directly influenced later marriages, delayed childbearing, prolonged periods of singleness, and higher divorce rates. Today, young people prefer enjoying a life independent of their families and embrace an era of autonomy. Klinenberg in his book mentions that in the past, people generally believed that marriage was a form of security for women during their least desirable years. Now, in their prime, women no longer require the role of a husband. The biggest concern for single women today is how to deal with the troubles brought by men who are eager to marry them. Third, changes in communication methods play a role. People can experience the joy of social interaction on a global scale. In the United States, landline telephone penetration reached 62% in 1950, and now it's nearly 95%. In the past decade, the widespread use of mobile phones and the internet has better combined personal sharing with mass communication. People can stay connected with the outside world through instant messaging and social networking platforms, which provide strong support for the solo lifestyle. Even elderly individuals, who can't be cared for around the clock by family members, can use phones and the internet to alleviate loneliness and receive assistance. This shows that living alone doesn't necessarily mean being isolated from the world. Fourth, the massive urbanization has made living alone possible. Urban subcultures attract those who don't conform to societal norms. The diverse and inclusive nature of cities allows them to find like-minded people wherever they go. A lifestyle centered around bars, restaurants, gyms, grassroots organizations, apartment living, and a more liberal approach to sexuality has formed a unique solo culture. Their various needs are met, and individuals with different values can find their own communities and belonging. Fifth, the significant extension of human lifespan has led to an increasing number of elderly solo dwellers. According to the author's research, living alone in old age is challenging. Old age brings various issues such as adapting to retirement, health problems, emotional loneliness, and coping with the loss of loved ones. This also places new demands on the social security system, requiring cooperation between families, the market, and the state to provide strong and invisible support. Comparing these 5 reasons to our current surroundings, you can see that there are many similarities. Although living alone is a popular trend now, it is still often misunderstood. While young people aspire to live independently, after a period of living alone, even if they enjoy this lifestyle, they may question whether continuing to live alone is suitable. Friends and family may worry about their choice and many people criticize them from a social responsibility perspective. Klinenberg's research has revealed significant disparities between our past perceptions and expectations regarding the issues brought about by living alone. The following are several conclusions the author has drawn from his investigation into going solo. First, living alone is not the primary cause of loneliness. Living alone and experiencing loneliness are not the same concepts, although many people often conflate them. Klinenberg references a psychologist's viewpoint that loneliness is a highly subjective psychological concept. Feeling lonely does not necessarily make you lonelier than others. So, does marriage alleviate feelings of loneliness? In fact, problematic marriages can impose tremendous stress, burdens, and health issues, intensifying one's sense of loneliness. Even in a perfect marriage, when one spouse passes away, the surviving spouse may find themselves in an even more challenging situation. Therefore, Klinenberg concludes that finding a lifelong partner or living with someone doesn't fundamentally solve the issue of loneliness. For example, Lewis, a 57-year-old lawyer and amateur musician living in West Berkeley, has been living alone for 15 years. He extols the autonomy that living alone has afforded him, saying, "I rarely went out when I was married. Now, I often go to the movies, have dinner with friends at Chinese restaurants, attend various performances. I lead a fulfilling life." People who live alone understand that life should be rich and diverse. To avoid loneliness, they also have another common choice: keeping a pet. Western societies have a culture of having pets in families. Currently, more than 60% of American households have pets, treating them as part of the family. One lady even asked Klinenberg if having a pet at home meant she wasn't considered to be living alone. The second finding is that being single does not equate to isolation, quite the opposite, as solo dwellers are often more enthusiastic about social interactions. Traditional thinking has led us to believe that living alone means isolation and limited interaction with the outside world. However, Klinenberg's research reveals that the majority of solo dwellers exhibit a higher level of engagement in social and community life. They are more likely than their married counterparts to dine out, exercise, participate in arts or music classes, attend public events, or go shopping with friends. Klinenberg interviewed young urban professionals who mentioned that they often felt distracted due to excessive social activities, such as evening gatherings with friends or constant online conversations, so they were never concerned about a lack of connection with the outside world. Mark, who works in investment banking, said that friends he met at work had become his primary social companions outside the office. "We go out for lunch, engage in sports in our free time, and even have our own tennis and softball teams. It's a lot of fun." Klinenberg found that people living alone were more likely to visit friends or join social groups, and they preferred to gather in vibrant cities where dynamic social activities abound. The social function is also changing. In the past, it focused on protecting people from harm, but now it's shifting toward maximizing individual talents. The third conclusion is that living alone is not a symbol of life failure, and society needs to change its discrimination against single individuals. In interviews with many single individuals, Klinenberg discovered that mainstream culture still places a premium on the security offered by marriage or intimate partnerships while stigmatizing living alone as a symbol of life failure. In many companies, employees with spouses and children often receive more respect and consideration for their personal time, while single individuals are subject to scrutiny. Klinenberg spoke to an unconventional woman named Helen, who had relocated from Canada to the United States, was approaching 40, and ran a website providing products and community services for single individuals. She complained about the atypical treatment she received in the workplace due to her single status. She said, "I was working at a company, and for a while, almost all the female colleagues in the office were pregnant. So, while I showed up at 8 a.m., they didn't arrive until 10:30 a.m., and then they had to leave at 2 p.m. to see the doctor. Once they had kids, they left at 5 p.m. to go home and take care of them, while I had to stay in the office until 7 p.m. What really infuriated her was finding out that her bonus had been cancelled. Meanwhile, in another underperforming department, a married colleague received a bonus. When she complained to her boss, he appeared friendly but pigeonholed her as a party girl, saying, "People naturally assume that, with your nice clothes and always going out, you don't need this money financially." So, she eventually resigned. In the past, single women purchasing homes were also treated unfairly. An article in the New York Times in 1981 was titled, "Single Women Begin Buying Real Estate." It wasn't until 1975 that the U.S. Congress passed the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, prohibiting lenders from discriminating based on gender or marital status when evaluating loan applications. This underscores how severe the discrimination against single women was at the time. Today, women make up 54% of college graduates in the United States, but their incomes still lag behind those of men, and gender pay equity remains elusive. For women who choose to be single mothers, life is not easy. Despite numerous women's organizations offering support for single women, further social mechanisms are needed to provide safeguards. The fourth conclusion is that many people who have experienced married life tend to prefer living alone. After reaching the highest rate in the 1980s, the U.S. divorce rate is currently declining. Statistics indicate that, on average, 1 in 5 adults has experienced divorce. Among divorced individuals aged 25 or older, only 44% of women and 55% of men chose to remarry, accounting for approximately half of the group. Among individuals aged 40 to 69 who have divorced, only one-third have chosen to remarry. Of course, marriage can bring economic benefits. Married or cohabitating couples can afford larger houses, reside in better neighborhoods, and share expenses such as cable TV, internet costs, and utilities. In addition, in cases of illness, unemployment, returning to school, or pursuing a different life path, a partner's salary and benefits can provide a greater sense of security. So why do many people forego the various benefits of marriage and opt for a solo lifestyle? Klinenberg found that, for women, they can escape from unappreciated, undervalued, and unpaid household responsibilities and focus more on their own needs. For men, they can enjoy a more adventurous and socially enriched life. In his interviews, Klinenberg encountered Helen, a teacher who was also a writer and had experienced 2 failed marriages but had not found a third husband. Helen stated, "Marriage is just too boring. I had the most miserable times when I was married. We fell in love once, but the marriage didn't succeed. We fell in love a second time, but it also ended in failure. So, with 1 or 2 times, you get the experience. The myth that marriage and true love will save us has been shattered. Many couples are muddling through their marriages because they fear loneliness and don't know how to handle themselves. Many divorced individuals express that they no longer believed in marriage, which makes the choice of living alone more appealing." The 5th conclusion is that we all grow old and may face the prospect of living alone in our later years, necessitating the combined support of families, the market, and the state. For those who are financially secure, have busy schedules, and enjoy a rich social life, living alone may be an efficient way of life. However, for vulnerable groups, living alone often leads to a perilous situation, requiring various social institutions, including support and protection from families, the market, and the state. Klinenberg provided an example of an elderly lady named Marianne, who had lived alone for decades and passed away in the fall of 2007. She was 79 years old at the time. She called an ambulance herself, checked into a hospital near her Los Angeles home, and 2 weeks later, after a complete cardiac arrest, her life ended. However, at that time, Marianne had no relatives or friends around her, and even the emergency contact she had listed was a pharmacy worker. Marianne had property, a bank account, and other valuable items at home, but there was no one to inherit her belongings. Subsequently, the public administrator's office arranged her burial in a local cemetery. U.S. survey results show that between 2003 and 2006, the average daily life of a typical elderly person living alone included 10 hours spent alone, 2 hours with family, 2 hours with friends and acquaintances, and 1 hour engaged in other activities. As people age, they may lose their independence, needing to rely on others or institutions, which is a common concern for many seniors. Some cities excel in providing generous public services for the elderly and those living alone, such as New York City. Nearly every community has senior centers that offer meals, social activities, and assistance in participating in other public events, encouraging the elderly to spend their retirement years in naturally formed retirement communities. These models are worth emulating in other areas. Lastly, Klinenberg conducted a special study in Stockholm, Sweden, which is currently the world's largest city with a solo-dwelling population. Let's explore how they serve solo dwellers. Stockholm has a solo-dwelling population of 60%, and family structures are disintegrating. Still, Sweden's welfare policies provide support for those going solo. In Stockholm, Klinenberg observed many residential buildings transformed into small, functional living spaces suitable for single individuals. These apartments, though compact, come equipped with a dining hall featuring a small elevator system to deliver meals to each unit. They also offer a laundry chute for sending dirty clothes to a downstairs pay-per-use laundry room, a daycare center for single mothers and other single men and women. In Sweden, the municipal government in Stockholm changed the apartment allocation system. Parents need to register for the right to use a small apartment for their newborns, ensuring that children can secure a small apartment upon graduating from high school. Some parents even transition from large family homes to smaller empty nest houses to help their children take their first steps toward independent living. One specially designed community in Sweden, Embrace the Journey of Life Together, is for people aged 40 and above who have no children and are interested in experiencing solo living together in their later years. Here, it differs from the traditional retirement home model, as full-time working middle-aged individuals and retirees live together. There are large dining rooms and open kitchens for communal dining, a library, a TV room, a computer room, a laundry room, a knitting area, a woodworking area, an interest group activity room, and public gardens and lounging areas. You can engage in activities according to your needs. Upstairs, there are rooftop terraces and a party banquet hall, and downstairs, there is a vast fitness center and sauna. Each residential unit includes a bedroom, a living room, and a compact kitchen. This setup allows elderly individuals in Sweden to lead happy and content lives. Sweden also has a strong national welfare system to address the most challenging aspects of solo living for its citizens. For instance, a woman who becomes a single mother and is taking care of one child can receive 16 months of paid parental leave from both her employer and the state. The government also provides top-notch childcare facilities, a public healthcare system, and more. In comparison, Klinenberg believes that the United States is unlikely to offer such generous social welfare policies. In summary, Klinenberg concludes in his book, Going Solo, that living alone is just as valid a life choice as marriage. It is not the only path to self-discovery and personal growth. It's a product of societal development at a particular stage and should not be stigmatized or discriminated against. Instead, society should provide services and support for those who live alone. To recap the main points of Going Solo, it highlights that living alone is becoming an unprecedented and inevitable social change, requiring future social and urban planning adjustments. We need to deepen our understanding of living alone, realizing that it is not the primary cause of loneliness. In the age of social media, solo dwellers are not socially isolated, on the contrary, they may be more enthusiastic about social interactions. Living alone is also not a symbol of life failure. Since we all may grow older and potentially live alone at some point, we need families, the market, and the state to collaborate in providing various forms of support. In this regard, the world can learn from Sweden's experience and see how they serve solo dwellers through their societal mechanisms. This book has now come to an end. Congratulations on finishing another book. Thank you for your support and attention. Please subscribe to the Tim Booker channel, like, and share with your family and friends. Wisdom is meant to be shared, so let's embark on a bright future together. Thank you, and goodbye.